So let's talk Michigan Wolverines. So Michigan, the big question for Michigan: can they win 3 straight Big Ten titles? Can they beat Ohio State once again? I think, to me, I'm almost getting kind of spoiled as a Michigan fan. I've almost just kind of penciled that in, or not penciled it in, but I'm almost kind of like starting to expect that they're going to beat Ohio State. And I forget that once upon a time that game was just like, you just kind of dreaded looking for that week because Ohio State was most likely going to get a win. Now, as a Michigan fan, Michigan fans are always believers in their team, so a lot of times we were believing that Michigan had a chance. And some years, when Michigan was in that long losing streak, when Ohio State had won all those games from 2012 to 2019, there was several years where there was a couple years where Brady Hoke played it close. 2013, Ohio State. Michigan failed that 2-point conversion and they ended up losing by 1 point. The year after, 2014, they were competitive for a while, and then Ohio State kind of pulled away. Jim Harbaugh, 2016, they had that game with a controversial spot, and then Curtis Samuel scored the touchdown. So, yeah, once upon a time, it was almost kind of a lock that Ohio State was going to win. But now that's crazy how that shifted, and Michigan goes into this season expecting to win the Big Ten and expecting to I don't know if I'd say expecting to beat Ohio State, but expecting to really be competitive and expecting that they will have a chance to beat them again. Even though it is back in Ann Arbor, Ohio State is loaded with talent. You could argue that Ohio State has probably the most NFL talent of any team. So, yeah, Michigan, it's a weak non-conference schedule, so they should start 3-0 once again. They do have talent returning defensively. Mason Graham, or the defensive line, it's going to start with Mason Graham. Josiah Stewart, a transfer from Coastal Carolina, is a really good player. I think he offers a lot of upside as a pass rusher and as a run stopper. Linebacking core, Junior Colson, one of the best linebackers in all of college football. Where he gets, how he is viewed for the NFL draft. I'm not as high on him for the NFL draft, but Junior Colson, a guy that's played a lot of football for Michigan, started as a true freshman in 2021, and I expect him to be a leader on the defense once again and be rock solid player and make a lot of tackles for him. 2 safeties for Michigan, Makari Page, Rod Moore. Rod Moore, one of my favorite players in the Michigan defense. This guy just flies around, makes tackles. He's one of those guys that's a tone setter for Michigan. Do lose R.J. Moten. He transfers to Florida, but, R.J. Moten was kind of pushed out. He started to get less and less playing time. It started to become more and more Rod Moore and Makari Page really, really holding their own at the safety spots. At the corner positions, it's going to start Mike Sanders still as their proven leader. Nickelback, a guy that made a lot of plays for Michigan, former wide receiver, a guy that transitioned to cornerback really well. He's a super good athlete. Also got Will Johnson at corner. Will Johnson, excellent overall corner, just a young guy. You saw him really burst onto the scene last year. 2 interceptions against Purdue. So, yeah, Will Johnson offers a lot of upside. He's a tremendous athlete. He's got a chance to go down as one of the best corners Michigan's had. And I don't hold back when I say that. He's going to be right there. He'll be right up there when it's all said and done with some of the great corners that have played at Michigan, including Charles Woodson, Jordan Lewis, even great defensive back. Jabril Peppers. He's right. He'll be right in the mix when it's all said and done. Will Johnson coming out of high school, big time recruit out of the Grosse Pointe area in Michigan, and he's done an excellent job in his first season. And it's going to be locked in as a starter this year. Excuse me. They get Josh Wallace, a transfer from UMass. Saw a brief highlight on Wallace. It looks like he's got some size and length, a guy that can play man coverage. I think this is big because that's the one concern with the Michigan roster is they have high-end players. They have high-end talent in the secondary. Sanders Still and Will Johnson, as good at 2 corners anywhere in the country. Or as good of nickel and corner in the country as you'll find. But overall depth, Michigan is missing some depth at the cornerback position. So Josh Wallace, hopefully it's a guy that you can pencil in at that other starter, and hopefully he has a good season, stays healthy, and makes some plays for him because they really need him at that other corner, that other outside corner opposite of Will Johnson. So hopefully Josh Wallace can be that guy for Michigan. Yeah, the defensive line, Chris Jenkins back too. I always forget about Mason Graham. I like Mason Graham. He was a true freshman out of California that made a big impact for Michigan. Was a guy that got in the rotation year one, but this is a guy that could be one of their key impact players inside on the defensive line. So really like what Mason Graham brings to the table. He's really good against the run. He's tough, strong, holds the point of attack. So really like Graham's game a lot. Got Jalen Harrell too. Chris Jenkins I touched on. The offensive line is going to be strong once again. Bringing Ladarius Henderson in the transfer portal. Mike Nugent, a center from Stanford. Miles Hinton, too, the brother of Chris Hinton. Chris Hinton played at Michigan a couple years ago in 2021. So, yeah, this offensive line, best offensive line the last 2 years. Job Moorhead award winner, and then all they've done is just bring in guys that they needed for depth in the transfer portal. You got some guys, too, some other proven guys. Carson Barnhart, not a guy that really started most of the time, but a guy that's got experience. Giovanni El Hadi, he's a guy that's mostly been a backup, but when he's filled in, has done a really nice job. And then, receiver, Roman Wilson. Been a nice player for him. Michigan talent in place, J.J. McCarthy experience. I was talking with my dad. It's interesting. Michigan, this is one of it's like the first time Jim Harbaugh returns a starting quarterback at Michigan. It seems like, when they have gotten a guy that was playing well, whether it was Jake Rudock in his first year or, Jake Rudock in his first year always comes to mind. He was playing well, and then he left the next year because that was his last year. So it's cool to have Michigan establish his starting quarterback who's going to return next year. I guess you could say Cade McNamara 2021, but Cade McNamara, he was beat out by McCarthy so early in the year that you can't really count that. But yeah, McNamara now at Iowa. But Michigan. So experience at the skill position. Tight end. I really like the tight end unit. Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland really broke out. I mean, he had a spectacular year and really emerged at the end. You saw he made plays against Ohio State and TCU. A.J. Barner, transfer quarterback from Indiana, is a really good player. And then two of the best running backs in the country, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Blake Corum with a case as the best running back in the entire country. So, yeah, Michigan, it's all there in place. It's not necessarily a given that they're just going to go 12-0, win the Big Ten, beat Ohio State. That's odds are, even if you're a really good team, you're going to stumble somewhere along the way. You just hope for Michigan, if they do stumble somewhere along the way, it doesn't come back to bite them and cost them a chance to get back to Indianapolis. So hopefully Michigan back at Ohio State at home. They do have to go at Penn State. They do have to go at Michigan State. Michigan State kind of a game still. As much as I don't like to say it is a little bit of a throw out the record game, and just strange things tend to happen. Well, not all. Well, strange things tend to happen in that game, period. I was going to say in East Lansing, but strange things have just tended to happen in that game. I'm still nervous for it, even though Michigan won last year. You saw they collapsed in 2021, so, we'll see what happens there, but do have to go on the road at Michigan State and at Penn State.